Welcome to the AdTech Forum and the first episode of our new series, Transparency, sponsored by DoubleVerify. With today's fast-moving and often polarizing news cycle, advertisers are dealing with everything from brand safety issues to concerns about the quality of polarizing news, content, and more.
Today's guest is Sarah Caputo, the Chief Digital and Marketing Officer at Envisionit. Sarah has brand, agency, and tech experience where she was the head of marketing at Plank and led digital media strategy and investments at Allstate. Sarah, thanks for being here today.
Thank you, guys. It's a lovely introduction. It's good to see you both.
Good to see you. We're going to go ahead and dive right into it today. So our first question is, how can verification and authentication tools help keep brands safe and protect advertisers' reputations, especially right now with all the ongoing global conflicts and it being an election year?
Yeah, I think just to start that it's really important to understand strategically, where brand may or may not need to be aligned. And then applying that with the tools and technology that exist. So I think one of the interesting aspects just in the technology space is the DoubleVerify ad verification platform. They do a really great job of consistently making updates categorically around those topics that might be inflammatory or sensitive to brands that need to protect their reputation, especially in special ads categories, which is really, really prevalent coming from my background at Allstate. Lived, eat, and breathe this one. So from a categorical perspective, the amount of information that's out there has been exponentially growing in terms of some topics that do feel a little bit sensitive. Violence, hate speech, just negativity in general in the political cycle and environment we're in. So having the ability to access that and block traffic and ads from showing up in those platforms and in the context of that is really becoming increasingly important.
So, Sarah, what recent trends and overall challenges in digital news show why we actually need verification tools to keep trust and authenticity strong?
Yeah, I think it definitely goes back to the growing misinformation. And this is global. This is not just in the United States. So it applies really to any program that's being run, whether it's, within the lens of our geography more locally in the United States, but also across the globe. So from a misinformation perspective, the amount of content, pages, and information that's coming through, not just programmatically on the web, but also with social media is becoming more and more prevalent. And it is a trend that you can see an uptick in from a data perspective. And the statistics do point to this happening year over year, especially in the last 4 to 6 years. And think that the sentiment from consumers also is that they don't know who to trust and what to believe. And in some cases, they're inadvertently sharing out that misinformation. So it's something to be very cognizant of in terms of fact checking and how do we kind of come to a point where we can centralize, similar to like the IAB standards for advertising, where sites and outlets and information are happening, the ability to kind of balance letting that information in as an industry. Just because doesn't seem to be going away, and it's extremely prevalent at this point in time.
It's very prevalent. So, with that said, as someone who is running a mid-sized agency and dealing with clients of mid-market and enterprise size, how do you help your advertisers handle the tricky tasks of being able to place ads in sensitive news content while at the same time doing your best to protect their brand's integrity and avoiding blocking news, because news is relevant. We want advertisers to be focused and surrounded by news.
And I will start with that. That's exactly right. I worry that if we block so much of that content, the only way for them to earn money to be able to actually give us news that's ethical and factual is to support by advertising alongside that content. So I think that's an important point that we first and foremost do not want to over-index on, just because from an ethics perspective, we want to be able to have ethical news and advertising that makes sense. So, going too far on the other end of the spectrum can definitely not be advantageous for us just as citizens. Secondarily, though, the tools do exist within, the platform and technology to be able to do whitelisting and then blocking of different domains that we find that might be more sensitive or providing more of that misinformation. And then when you augment that with a double verify tool with pre and post bid, capabilities, we're able to add that additional layer because they are the experts in like more of the publisher side aspects of brand safety in a way that's really meaningful.
So understanding how meaningful it is, understanding how important it is, how can we as an industry, how can publishers, agencies, overall verification providers work actually together to boost this level of transparency and trust across the overall digital news ecosystem?
Yeah, it's interesting because this is something where I see a lot of the ad tech industry trying to come together around how to solve for measurement and attribution, unified ID, so on and so forth, all the things that are occurring. And, it makes sense because in order to have advertisers spend on the platform, you have to kind of solve for that and have techniques in measurement that show you what's working and not working. I would love for the industry to actually take a similar approach, knowing that it's less about monetization, but more about the right thing to do as it relates to publishers coming together to create an industry standard. There are outlets out there that are non-for-profit that talk about where this misinformation is coming from. So if you think about the ability to actually maybe block sources that show up regularly on those platforms. It would not be a very heavy lift just in general, but it would take the industry coming together from a publisher's and supply perspective to actually come up with those standards for the betterment of the industry at large. So that's something I'd like to see. I know that there's, some challenges that come with that, just as we see with the measurement solutions that they're trying to come together on. Ideally, the suppliers would be held a little bit more accountable for what they're bringing in, as well as the DSPs, making sure that they're partnering with SSP supply partners in general that are ethical and trying to do their best to avoid, some of this problem.
You mentioned a lot about, misinformation and the importance of determining what isn't accurate information in various news sources on the market. But, what are the tools and strategies that can make sure that the news content, stays credible and authentic and really safe for advertisers in the market? What are some of those strategies you may look at?
Yeah, I think it's not to use the old saying, it's a multi-pronged approach, but there are definitely multiple ways in. From a DSP perspective, you have the ability to use their contextual AI solutions as well as double verify, which has a contextual component to their technology. You have the ability to actually augment with PMP and PG deals, which are direct and completely controlled, so that you're kind of balancing that. And there's other benefits there too. And then generally speaking, the Gen AI improvements, actually, this is going to benefit this particular topic. The LLMs, the language models, are getting more and more strong and accurate. So as we think about contextual AI solutions and that technology evolving, we'll be able to actually understand the context and sentiment around where content is showing up in a more accurate way. So Gen AI, I think, is going to do a little bit here also, which is going to help double verify and other partners' products become even stronger.
Incredible. Thank you, Sarah. That actually brings us to the end of this episode, brought to you by Double Verify, focused on transparency. Sarah, thank you again for being here today and for being our guest.
Well, thank you both. It was really a pleasure. It was all mine.
Thank you.
Have a good day.